Despite the staggering lack of physical evidence in the form of archaeological remains to support the biblical assertion that the earth was once inhabited by a race of human giants, what of the claim that a world once existed prior to a great cataclysmic flood in which atmospheric conditions were such that giant versions of modern species were rather common, including human giants?
Is it possible that environmental conditions of past ages favored the development of giants?
I'm of the opinion that under better atmospheric conditions, people were living not only longer, but they were taller, much taller.
Giants and dinosaurs could not exist today as they did in the past because the atmospheric conditions simply will not permit it.
Based on fossil evidence, trees like the California giant sequoia grew much larger than they do today. One theory explains this by proposing that environmental conditions in the distant past were more conducive to gigantic growth.
Under these described conditions, plants and animals would live longer, be much larger, and that's precisely what we find in the geologic column in the fossil record. Plants were much larger. All living systems were larger. Today, the dragonfly has perhaps a 4-inch wingspan. In the fossil record, his counterpart, Meganeuropsis, had up to a 5-foot wingspan. Everything was larger in the past. Being interested in Earth's original conditions, after 35 years of research on those parameters, I've attempted to reconstruct that context. And in so doing, I've had our engineers build a biosphere that doubles the atmospheric pressure, that increases the electromagnetic energy, that increases the ratio of oxygen, but not to the level of toxicity, that eliminates ultraviolet radiation, etc. And the experiments that we've run have been very gratifying.
One cannot simply ask what Earth's early atmosphere was like and then try to replicate it. One must first ask which of the many early Earth atmospheres one wishes to study. Contrary to creationist assertions, the Earth did not come out of a package with one atmosphere. A flood occurred, and then another atmosphere took the original's place. An atmosphere which is still with us today. At the formation of the Earth, there was no atmosphere. The Earth's first atmosphere developed over eons and went through many changes. For creationists' purposes, who like to focus in on an atmosphere saturated with oxygen, perhaps that of the Carboniferous is most intriguing. The Carboniferous period extended from about 359 to 299 million years ago. For a good part of this era, the oxygen concentration in the Earth's atmosphere was about 35%, whereas the oxygen concentration in Earth's current atmosphere is 21%. This required less effort for respiration, and so many insects and arthropods grew to incredibly large sizes. Lack of predation probably also was a contributing factor, for the Carboniferous was a time before the dinosaurs, before birds, before human beings. And we should all be thankful we weren't there to witness the world the way it was. While atmospheric conditions during this era indeed contributed to the giantism found in some insect species of the time, there were no human beings to benefit from the increased oxygen content such that they could have grown large enough to build stone structures the way children today build with Lego blocks. In addition, there is absolutely no evidence there was a worldwide flood. In fact, evidence abounds that no such event ever occurred. During the age of the world's largest dinosaurs, the Jurassic period, 200 million years ago, average CO2 concentrations were about 1,800 parts per million, or about 4.7 times higher than they are today. Evidence of widespread coral reefs also suggests the overall atmosphere was moist and temperate or tropical. There is certainly no evidence that there was less ultraviolet radiation reaching the Earth, much less for something called a pulsed electromagnetic field, which would have contributed to giantism.
In our controlled scientific experiment, we have measured the effects of a pulsed electromagnetic field on biological systems. We have these Pacu piranha fish that normally at 3.5 years of age are about this size under optimal conditions. Yet we have them now in excess of 20 inches, weighing just under 5 pounds each. Under these controlled conditions, we have succeeded in producing giantism at an accelerated rate.
Taken at face value, the research looks persuasive, though it has not yet been replicated by other scientists.
In the wild, under today's atmospheric conditions, a full-grown pacu can reach up to 60 pounds in weight. One needn't have a controlled scientific experiment to catch a whopper, just a good fishing hole. Aquarium pacu can be larger than the creationists' 20 inches and reach as much as 24 to 30 inches in length, all without the need of pulsing electromagnetic fields. But even if we could demonstrate that certain atmospheric conditions were favorable to increasing the size of some animal and/or insect species, and were able to evidence a different atmosphere of such conditions in the distant past which disappeared, according to creationists, during a global flood, the Bible reports giants on Earth long after the cataclysmic deluge, when atmospheric conditions were, presumably, exactly as they are today. For not only were there giants, but normal-sized humans as well.
Hello, Laverne here. Thank you for joining me in what is the 10th video in this series dealing with the writings of Enoch. In this video, I'm going to be talking about evil spirits. Enoch explains that evil spirits actually come and are giants, who are the offspring that resulted from the union of fallen angel and women. Atheists love to point out how evil God is because he demands the Israelites to destroy certain cities, and in doing so to kill every person in that city, including babies, innocent babies. But you see, if we understood, the Christians understood the writings of Enoch, we would understand that the giants that were living in these cities were the offspring of the giants back in the day of early man, pre-flood. And these were the descendants, the same giants who were cannibals.
And so, in one fell swoop, the assertion that giants existed because of some sort of atmospheric or electromagnetic conditions prior to the Great Flood is demolished by the non-canonical Book of Enoch, but also by the Bible itself, which claims in various places that giants lived centuries after the Noachian floodwaters had abated.
The Nephilim were a race of giants which once encompassed the entire earth. This image depicts a Babylonian king, so large that he holds a lion in his arms like a man might hold a house cat. He also has 6 fingers and toes, which was common to some of the tribes of giants born after the flood, and is the result of a duplicate gene, an error, if you will, in the genetic tinkering of the Nephilim.
Multiple digits on the hands and feet are not the result of sexual intercourse between angelic beings and human females. Multiple digits, known as polydactyly, is indeed a genetic abnormality, but is due to a number of factors, not necessarily genetic disease. It also occurs in other species, not just in human beings. If polydactylism is the result of the genetic tinkering by the angelic beings mentioned in the Bible and the non-canonical Book of Enoch, were they then also interested in our pet kitty cats?
There are a great many artifacts left behind by the Nephilim, including footprints, which have been found in several places around the world.
The photo used by this apologist in the preceding clip was taken from a television news report. It is a picture frequently used by Bigfoot advocates, taken in the Cleveland National Forest. It shows what appears to be a human footprint in what was reported to be a granite slab. However, if this is a foot, it only has 4 toes, whereas our apologist insisted the Nephilim were supposed to have 6. Regardless, granite is not mud or wet sand. Granite's major constituents are the minerals feldspar, quartz, and mica, and it is an igneous rock formed deep within the earth from silica-rich magma. No one, not even a giant, could step in granite while it is forming, because in order for large mineral crystals to form, it has to cool very, very slowly, which is why it only forms at great depths underground. Rhyolite, which is chemically and mineralogically the same as granite, is an igneous rock formed from silica-rich magma which is extruded at the Earth's surface from volcanoes. It has no visible crystals because it cools very quickly. However, if anyone decided to step in rhyolitic lava, even if one's foot were 24 inches long, their appendage would more or less immediately be incinerated. Whatever this picture is, it is not the foot of a living thing stepping in granite or rhyolite.
King Og of the Bible had a bed which was iron, and 16 feet in length. This is a bed for a man that is 12 to 14 feet tall. The Nephilim vary greatly in size. This chart shows us the great size of ancient giants. At the far left we see a normal man of 6 feet height, and at the far right a man of 36 feet in height. It also shows us how common the various giants were in their height. For example, it was most common for a giant to be approximately 15 to 16 feet tall. The next most common was approximately 8.5 feet, and so on to 36 feet.
The Apologist gives us what he believes is the most common height for the ancient biblical giants, somewhere around 15 to 16 feet tall, supported by claims made in the Bible. And this leads us next to the most devastating evidence against human giants: the science of physics.